Roland Martin Unfiltered for Friday, February 1st, 2019. I'm Dr. Avis, in for Roland Martin, who has lost his voice this evening. So we hope you get well soon, Roland. First on tonight's show, New Jersey Senator Cory Booker announces that he's running for president. We've got complete coverage from his social media video to his mom, to his first interview on the Tom Joyner Morning Show, and a look back at his first run for mayor in his hometown of Newark, New Jersey. Next, did the current governor of Virginia, Democrat Ralph Northam, appear in his yearbook page in blackface or Klan robes? We've got the shocking pictures and details later. Republicans say that Democrats' ideas on Medicare for all and taxing the ultra-rich are radical and un-American. Our panel will break that down. And we told you yesterday that Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell thinks making it easier to vote is a terrible idea. Today, the Reverend William Barber is here to tell us why McConnell is wrong, really wrong. Also, the jobs report is out today with over 300,000 new jobs. How are African Americans really doing? Well, Dr. Kristen Brody, an economist at Alabama A&M, is here to give the details. Jussie Smollett releases his first statement on the vicious attack that ended with a rope around his neck. We've got that. And we have a scoop on what song Senator Booker may use in his campaign for president. It's time to bring the funk on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the miss, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, y'all. It's Roland Martin, yeah. Rolling with Roland now. He's funk, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now.
New Jersey Senator Cory Booker announced this morning that he is running for president. He joins California Senator Kamala Harris, New York Senator Kirsten Gillibrand, Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren, who will formally announce this weekend, and that's just the senators. There are four others who will be running as well. And specifically with Senator Booker, he put out some social media sort of information this morning. Let's take a look at the video that he released to the world right now. Oh, do we have it or do we not have it? Okay, so we don't have it. Well, we might come back to that. Let's take a look at some footage of him signing his candidate papers with his mother, Carolyn. Do we have that? Do we have anything with Cory Booker?
Okay. All right, here I go. Come on. The paperwork is signed. Yeah. I am official.
Official for what, sir?
Official for running for president.
Okay. Can't take it back now. Somebody grab that before he rips it off.
Ah, that's so sweet. Well, Booker announced on the very first day of Black History Month, and it's a good time to remember that a total of 10 African Americans have run for president, including Congresswoman Shirley Chisholm, Reverend Jesse Jackson, Alan Keyes, who was a Republican, Senator Carol Moseley Braun, Reverend Al Sharpton, businessman Herman Cain, Dr. Ben Carson, President Barack Obama, Senator Kamala Harris, and now Senator Cory Booker. The senator appeared on the Tom Joyner Morning Show just minutes after he sent out his social media video this morning, and it was his first interview after announcing.
Senator Cory Booker, good morning.
Good morning, Tom. It's such an honor to be on your show this morning.
Oh, man, the honor's all mine. Roland?
All right, Senator. I barely got a voice, but everywhere I go, people keep saying, is Senator Cory Booker going to run for president? The question is, sir, are you going to run for president in 2020?
Well, I literally just pushed send on my tweet and Instagram accounts, but this is my first time saying it publicly. I wanted to come on this show, Tom, because of what you mean to so many people in this country. I want everybody to know that I am running for president of the United States of America. And just really excited to do so. We live in a nation where people are beginning to lose faith in what we can do together. Folks are feeling left out. Folks are feeling left behind. And I think too many people are beginning to think that the things that are tearing us apart are stronger than the things holding us together. I'm running for president to change that, to reignite our sense of what's possible, and reignite the moral imagination of what we can become together. I believe in this nation. As difficult as our past has been, we have always overcome. We've got a better future ahead of us if we come together, work together, stand together, and I believe, America, in the days ahead, we will rise.
And that is why you are running for president.
Exactly. This is the story of my life in many ways. From the time I was just coming out of law school, I ran to places where folks said things couldn't be done. From joining with some of the greatest tenant leaders in America here in the inner city of Newark to take on slumlords that people said couldn't be beat, we beat them. From joining with incredible folks in Newark and out of Newark, in a city that folks were demeaning and degrading and people were giving up to, we showed that this city could rise again, and we're now in our biggest period of economic development, of educational improvement. And even down in Washington, D.C., where Roland knows, a lot of people are cynical about what can be done. I went down there not just to talk, but to get things done, and joined with people across the aisle to take the first crack in undoing mass incarceration, to even passing writing a very historic piece of legislation that's going to lead to the biggest investments in low-income areas in our country in decades. So I believe that the history of this country is a testimony to the achievement of the impossible if we stand together, and that's why I'm in this.
Senator Cory Booker, this is Sybil Wilkes, and my concern is about who I am as a black woman. And, of course, black women have been the backbone and the greatest supporters of the Democratic Party, not to mention our families and the nation. With a black woman already in the Democratic presidential race, what are you saying to black women and other women of color to get our support?
Well, look, my life has been defined by black women. I was born to black parents. From my elders to even in my community. I always say I got my BA from Stanford, but my PhD on the streets of Newark. And anybody who knows our communities know that it's black women that often lead, sustain, nourish, and empower us. And so I'm running for all Americans, but I know that often in the black community, the conditions and the realities are what is a good way, lens with which to view the success of our nation. And so if it's issues from us, unfortunately, leading the industrial world in infant mortality and the death of mothers in the earliest years, to issues of economic empowerment. You know, when I go to my corner bodega, I see women who are working a full-time job but still need food stamps to feed their families. So the reason I'm running is to make sure that the issues of the folks who feel left behind, who feel like they're working harder and harder but having more month at the end of their money than money at the end of their month, that's why I'm standing up and fighting. And at the end of the day, I want to be judged not by my race, not by my gender, but by the content of my character, the spirit I want to bring to this nation, and also by the quality of my ideas.
Senator, why are 4 more years of Donald Trump bad for America?
Look, you know, everybody, I think, that I talk to when I walk my community is hurting right now. And there are even more people that actually are afraid. You know, we've seen just a massive increase in hate attacks in our country against so many Americans, whether they're LGBTQ or black folks. And everybody's got to know that I'm running really not to beat anybody. I'm running to unite people, because I know that when we stand together, when we work together, we can rise together. And let me tell you this, we're not going to win this race by showing the worst of who we are, but by the best. And I only know one way, as we were all taught by some of our best ancestors, that you can't drive out darkness with darkness. You got to bring the light. You can't drive out hate with hate. You got to bring the love. And I just think it's time for a more radical empathy for each other in this country, and an understanding that our strength lies in our ability to foster greater unity and to have a revival in this country of a spirit of civic grace.
Senator Cory Booker, you also are talking about making this a better nation, and some of the things that you're talking about that you have been very strong in your proposals of bills, as well as passing them through the United States Senate. And we're talking about, especially about our drug laws, and that's a great concern for a lot of people, and especially the disproportionate sentences against men of color. And can you talk a little bit about that and how you would like to work with the United States House and Senate to change some of those things?
Yeah, we all pledge an oath in this country. We literally swear an oath that we are going to be a nation of liberty and justice for all. For the country that professes the ideals of freedom, to have 1 out of every 4 incarcerated people on the planet Earth here in America, to have 1 of every 3 incarcerated women on the planet Earth here in America. This is a cancer on the soul of our country, and it hurts everybody. When our bridges and roads are crumbling, we invest in the infrastructure of prisons unlike any other civilization in humanity, building a new prison every 10 days from the time I was in law school to the time I was mayor of this great city in Newark. And worse than that, you judge a country often by who they imprison. Some nations put journalists in prison. Some nations put political opposition in prison. You go to prisons in America, and you see that we're shuttling in there the mentally ill. We're shuttling in there the addicted. We're shuttling in there the poor. As my friend Brian Stevenson says, we have a nation that treats you better if you're rich and guilty than poor and innocent. And overwhelmingly, as you said, we disproportionately incarcerate black and brown people. That has got to stop. It's hurting us all. And if folk don't think this isn't a national urgency, there's a great university that put out a study that shows we would have 20% less poverty in all of America if our incarceration rates were in line with other nations. We're not making ourselves safer. We're creating more dangerous conditions, more economic instability. We're hurting not just individuals, but families and communities by over-incarcerating folk. And I know from being mayor of Newark that when you put together prison reentry programs, when you take courts that push people out of jail through our drug courts and our veteran courts and our youth courts, that you actually create more safety when you empower lives, when you get people health care and mental health care. And so we have a comeuppance in this country. We could save billions of dollars. We can empower lives. We can change the destinies of a generation yet to come, because too many of our children are being shuttled into cages and, God, coffins as well. So I'm committed to this fight. I still remember when I was running for Senate, people were telling me, oh, this isn't a top issue. But I was like, look, I'm not looking for consensus. I'm trying to mold consensus. I don't care if I'm in the richest neighborhoods of New Jersey or the lowest income communities. I'm going to talk about changing our criminal justice system. And that means, doing like Obama did with the 21st Century Policing Group, to talk about police accountability with police officers, with community activists, because we can do better there. It means changing our drug laws, ending prohibition against marijuana, which has led, black folks are no different in their usage rates or even the dealing rates, but are almost 4 times more likely to be incarcerated for marijuana. We do not have equal justice under the law. And it means all the way to helping our brothers and sisters when they come home to get jobs. Why do we have a nation that after you've served your sentence, when you come home trying to stand on your feet again, trying to be there for your family, we deny you jobs and business licenses and bank loans and the ability to thrive again? So I believe in redemption. I believe in the goodness of people, and we should show the world what the land of the free can really do in empowering people, not throwing them in holes and cages.
And we now have Senator Booker's announcement video ready for you. Let's roll that tape.
In America, we have a common pain, but what we're lacking is a sense of common purpose.
What's up? Amen.
I grew up knowing that the only way we can make change is when people come together. When I was a baby, my parents tried to move us into a neighborhood with great public schools, but realtors wouldn't sell us a home because of the color of our skin. A group of white lawyers who had watched the courage of civil rights activists were inspired to help black families in their own community, including mine. And they changed the course of my entire life. Because in America, courage is contagious. My dad told me, boy, never forget where you came from or how many people had to sacrifice to get you where you are. So over 20 years ago, I moved into the Central Ward of Newark to fight slumlords and help families stay in their homes. I still live there today, and I'm the only senator who goes home to a low-income inner-city community, the first community that took a chance on me. We are better when we help each other. The history of our nation is defined by collective action, by interwoven destinies of slaves and abolitionists, of those born here and those who chose America as home, those who took up arms to defend our country, and those who linked arms to challenge and change it. I believe that we can build a country where no one is forgotten, no one is left behind, where parents can put food on the table, where there are good-paying jobs with good benefits in every neighborhood, where our criminal justice system keeps us safe instead of shuffling more children into cages and coffins, where we see the faces of our leaders on television and feel pride, not shame. It is not a matter of can we. It's a matter of do we have the collective will, the American will. I believe we do. Together, we will channel our common pain back into our common purpose. Together, America, we will rise. I'm Cory Booker, and I'm running for President of the United States of America.
Looks like we got a race. So joining us on tonight's panel to discuss this and other issues are Janice Mathis, Executive Director of the National Council of Negro Women, Dr. Julianne Malveaux, Economist and President Emerita of Bennett College, and Eugene Craig, CEO of Eugene Craig Group. Thanks a lot for coming, you guys.
Appreciate it.
Good to be here. So what do you? It is a special edition. Things are heating up. So what do you think about Booker's announcement?
I think that we're fortunate to have this deep bench of talent. When I look at Warren and Booker and Harris, I think any of them would be better than where we are right now.
You got that right.
And I think we have to be careful, though, because there are going to be people who oppose health care, who oppose Social Security, who oppose education, who oppose criminal justice reform, who will tell us what's wrong with them. Mm-hmm. And I just hope we have the fortitude to ignore the critics from the peanut gallery who tell us that our talented folk are not talented enough.
I'm so glad that you took the high road there. Because I have some other stuff to say, but
well, go ahead, you know.
No, but in deference to, but you're right. We do have a deep bench of talent. Sure. I am less excited about Cory Booker, frankly, than I am of any of the others. I think that Kamala Harris brings a strong and compelling case. Elizabeth Warren, I love her focus on economic issues, of course, and all of her Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, all of that. Yeah. Although I could whip her for taking a DNA test.
Yeah.
Deciding that
that was a self-imposed wound right there.
Yeah. But I love the way that she focused on economic issues, which I don't really see from many of the others. You know, but by the time it's over with, we're going to probably be like the Republicans and have 15 of them. Oh, yeah. But Cory Booker does not excite me. I would just say that. I would just put it out there. He does not excite me
whatsoever. I thought his answer on what you think about women was weak. He's got to practice, he's got to do better. But when he started talking about criminal justice and what it means that we have 1 in 3 women who are in prison in this country, that seemed to be coming from his gut. And I think that what people are looking for is authenticity. And that's who he really is. Maybe that's his singer. Maybe
so there's Kamala. So there's Kamala, and that's authenticity. I think this brother, you know, he is a how can I put it? He's a media creation from the beginning. He got the New York Times to run for mayor of Newark. He does this little fake Jake stuff of I'm going to stay in the projects. Now, you know, give me a break. You don't
think he lives in the projects, Dr. Malveaux?
No, Avis, I do not think that, brother man. I know that was some fake Jake stuff, and I just think that a lot of his stuff is fake Jake. But you know what? We're going to see all these people come out and play it out, and it's going to be interesting. Yeah. And you know, it's a year before the first primary. Absolutely. So you know, some people are not going to raise money. Some people go raise money. And it's going to be, you know, I think for Democrats, it's exciting, except for the presence of that idiot from Starbucks. I stopped, you know, this morning, I walked by Starbucks. I didn't even get my tea.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I was so bad I didn't even get my tea. I walked by the Starbucks, went home, and put a tea bag in a cup. Oh. Because that man is cray-cray.
Yeah.
But
so, Eugene, that's the only brother on the panel. What do you think?
I've learned not to interrupt grown folk when they're talking. The thing is this. I think Booker brings a lot of value to this race. There is a space on the Democrat side for a centrist, or at least a perceived centrist. The work that he did, that he's done when it comes to criminal justice reform, you got to look at it. You got to look at the totality of Cory Booker.
Right.
He's a former mayor. As a mayor, there is opportunity to be a hyper-partisan, but at the end of the day, you do have to bring folk together to get things done. But when he got elevated to the U.S. Senate, he was not one that was afraid to engage the other side.
Spartacus. Spartacus.
Yeah. Well.
Come on now.
Yeah, I think that was.
That's what I'm talking about. Fake Jake.
I agree with you. I agree with you there. I agree with you there.
Spartacus moment.
I mean, he happened to slip out without getting the ethics hit for that moment. But the thing is this, right? When it came to criminal justice reform, you have folks on the right, Freedom Works and R Street that wanted to get things done. You have folks on the left that have been wanting to get done for a long time.
Right.
He was one of the first that said, hey, you know what? I'm going to go to the other side. Let's form an actual coalition. We talk to our own people and our own language and get this thing done. And here we have the first step back. That's something he could run on. Elizabeth Warren, I like Kamala, some of the other senators that are jumping in this race, Gillibrand, they're going to have issues. Senators have issues when they run for higher office, defining what was your defining moment as a senator. Bernie Sanders is going to have a major issue. What did you get done in the last 25 years as U.S. Senator? Yeah. Cory Booker has something concrete he can point to where he's led on.
Well, let's talk about that and some of his other issues.
Absolutely. One more major thing is this. Yeah. One thing I liked about his video is that he brought the idea of populism back to people of color. That it's not just this, Midwest, white guy left out deal. It's a, hey, folk that are living in our cities are hurting. Folk that are they're working 40, 80 hours a week and still have to figure out how to put food on the table.
Okay, so sweetie, you drank the Kool-Aid.
Listen, I'm Team Harris, President Harris 2021. So
I think that common purpose. That's a good alliterative phrase. That's gonna play.
Yeah. Well, let's kind of go through some of his issues and let's pull out a few of them. So these are the main ideas that Booker's running on. Criminal justice reform, which is what you just alluded to, maybe his seminal piece so far in the Senate. Legalize marijuana and expunge possessions convictions, I think is a huge thing.
I can go with a legalized marijuana.
Absolutely. And the other half of that is very important too.
Dr. J lives in the district.
We got to expunge those records as well. I think that's very important. Okay, Medicare. This is very critical here in terms of particularly the difference here between what he is saying and what Kamala kind of fell into the weeds with the other day, right? So he is arguing that we need Medicare open to all, but keep private insurance, all right? He's also arguing for housing tax credits for renters so that they get some similar sort of financial benefit from it in the same way that homeowners do. And he's also an advocate for baby bonds, which is an idea that every child that's born in America gets a $1,000 bond that would grow in value to $50,000 over time that would ultimately work towards in some way reducing the racial wealth. It won't reduce the disparity because everybody gets it. It's a universal program, but at least increase maybe some level of wealth among the African American community.
And it will increase access for people, but it does not. But again, fake Jake. So it's going to reduce the wealth gap? No, it's not.
It's not going to reduce the wealth gap.
It's a universal
if you give
everybody $50,000,
even Howard Schultz children would get it, for example.
Exactly.
Even billionaires' children would get it.
So, again, I think that there's some things that he's put on the table that are innovative.
Right.
Certainly the credit for renters is something that's really important because part of the wealth gap, actually, and if he had better sense, he would sort of hook that into closing the wealth gap, as in, because 42% of African Americans own homes compared to almost 70% of whites. So if you were able to say that you got a tax credit as a renter, that would reduce some aspect of the wealth gap and make it more accessible for people to purchase housing.
Right.
So I just don't see that that's something he could spin. It's something that economists, progressive economists would really, like me, would really sort of get into. But he hasn't not really spun that. I just find, I'm thinking back to 2016 and thinking back to his speech at the Democratic Convention. I just found it less than.
So you're not in love with them. That's what I'm hearing.
Not, honey, I didn't even like with them.
You're not even in like with them.
No. But whereas with Miss Kamala, you know, and she's my Bay Area homegirl, and very excited about what she's doing. And I'm excited, however, more about what's going on. In other words.
Okay. One other thing I want to point out before we move on to the next subject. Here we now have 2 black people running for president. We may end up with a third if Eric Holder decides to join in. What does this mean for the black vote in terms of fracturing the black vote moving into South Carolina? Does this sort of sentence all of them to not being victorious in their runs for president?
I don't think so.
This is from South Carolina.
I'll say this. I don't think so. I mean, I am of the mind that Kamala probably runs away with this at South Carolina, California. But I do think that with the race being what it is, you know, probably end up with 20-odd people in this thing. Yeah. That, you know, you can walk out of there with 20, 30% and then keep moving forward. And it's going to a broker convention. I do think part of the discussion that needs to take place over the next year is that with both, you know, 2 of the 3 black U.S. senators running, there needs to be a new bench of black U.S. senators elected to the U.S. Senate. Because the idea is this, you know, they both run for president, you know, whoever wins, they're both probably going to get tapped for secretaryships. Yeah. Or appointments.
That's true.
If they want them.
If they want them.
Yeah. And they may not, because we do have the precedent of people running for president and staying in the Senate because they have more power there. Absolutely. But Janice is from South Carolina.
Well, and across the South, half the Democrats in the South are African American.
Right.
At least half. So you got 2 black candidates. So they split the black vote. They still got, I agree with your figure, about 20% or thereabouts. So they're still going to be the top vote getters, even if they split it, assuming they split it relatively evenly.
Yeah, sounds good.
And I think that Kamala is far more compelling than Booker is. Of course, my biases are showing.
I'm loving that you're loving the AKA, Dr. Malvo.
Well, you know, every now and then, you people have some sense. Every now and then, you people, but
we got the Delta AKA thing going.
I just have to keep reiterating. Kellyanne Conway was saying something today about how she thought it was disrespectful of Booker to run against the women and all that. She can't tell us nothing.
No. She need to send her
what the guy say? Fall back. Fall back.
She needs to step her.
So we got to move on, you guys. We got a full show today. So yesterday we told you about H.R. 1. The bill in the House of Representatives would reform campaign finances and government ethics. It also focuses on expanding voting rights, including making Election Day a national holiday. That is not a revolutionary idea. Plenty of countries do that, right? And that would allow voter registration on Election Day as well and online. But the idea of making it easy for people to vote is really troubling for some Republicans. Big surprise there. We showed you Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell of Kentucky trashing it on the Senate floor. We're going to show it again, and then we'll talk to the Reverend William Barber on the other side.
Their bill would make Election Day a new paid holiday for government workers and created an additional brand new paid leave benefit for up to 6 days for any federal bureaucrat who decides they'd like to hang out at the polls during any election. Just what America needs, another paid holiday and a bunch of government workers being paid to go out and work. I assume our colleagues on the other side on their campaigns. This is the Democrat plan to restore democracy? A brand new week of paid vacation for every federal employee who'd like to hover around while you cast your ballot?
Just what Americans don't want, another paid holiday. Right. So joining us now by phone is Reverend William Barber, President of Repairers of the Breach. Reverend Barber, welcome to Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Well, thank you so much. Thanks so much. Tell Roland I'm thinking about it. About the voice issue, but we certainly are. You know, I listened to McConnell and sound like a modern day George Wallace, you know, standing between voting rights and the people. You know, senators and members of the Congress are the last ones to talk about people being on vacation. As many vacations as they take. That's number one. Number two, you know, we have vacations for dead presidents, but we don't want to have an election day to vote for living people who are running for president. but I think also we have to be careful because, everything they do is strategic. So he comes out and he focuses on the national holiday, which is just one piece of it. But he doesn't also talk about this bill is talking about making same-day registration, a fixture or automatic registration at 18, a part of it, or a paper trail, so that you don't just have an electronic trail, electronically, what the vote's going to be, but you actually have a paper trail. They're also talking about nullifying photo ID by simply having signature attestation if you don't have an ID, which is fact what we had in North Carolina before they started messing with things. We had signature attestation. If you lied, you got a 5-year felony. We had no cases at all of so-called voter fraud. So, it's to hear him stand there and joke and laugh. Actually, I don't think he was laughing because it was funny. He's laughing because he's scared. The reality is, you're talking about the South. Yeah. If you register 30% of the unregistered black voters in the South and can connect them with poor whites, progressive poor whites, and working class whites and Latinos, you have a whole new political map. That's what we're focusing on in the Poor People's Campaign. If that were to happen, North Carolina, Georgia, Florida, Texas, Virginia, and possibly Alabama, and even maybe Mississippi, new battlegrounds. I mean, they flipped. None of those states are really red states. They're unorganized voter suppression states. And the Republicans know that because they have counted on 13 southern states for the last 50 years to ensure them 171 electoral votes going into any presidential election. That's been their game plan. On the flip side, I'm concerned, though, about Democrats because I haven't read in this bill, and I haven't read it all the way, that them talking about fully restoring the Voting Rights Act. Because without restoring the Voting Rights Act, we don't have pre-clearance. And they've had over 5 years to do that ever since June 25th, 2013. Lastly, in this bill, they talk about throwing redistricting to an independent group, but just throwing it independent, taking it out of the hands of state legislatures without putting some clear guidance as it relates to race is not enough, because all of this is based on race. I mean, this is not about blocking Democrats from the vote. Voter suppression is about people of color, period. It affects, white people. In fact, one of the ways it affects white people is people who get elected through voter suppression, suppressing the vote of black people. Once they get elected, they pass policies that mostly negatively hurt white people.
Yep. Absolutely.
And that's the story and the things we've got to begin to organize and teach around. That's what we're doing, the Poor People's Campaign. We're actually looking now at every district in the country, voting area, where just a 3 or 5% increase in the number of poor people voting and properly politicized could fundamentally change elections all across the board. So I'm glad to see this H1 bill. It is an omnibus bill. And I will say this on your show, my biggest prayer and thing I'm discerning is that Democrats are not doing this because they know that they're never going to get it through the Senate.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Because the reality is everything that's put in that bill, now Democrats should have done it when they had control of both the House and the Senate.
You're exactly right. Absolutely.
It's way late, And I come from North Carolina. I think Dr. Malvo is up there. We won same-day registration and early voting, but it took us 25 years fighting Democrats.
I hear you. Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
It took Democrats were in control. It took us 25 years. Now, everybody talks about what the Republicans have done now, or the extremists who call themselves Republicans, and how they gutted voting laws after Shelby in North Carolina and all over the country. 26 states have passed voter suppression laws since 2010. Many have done it since 2013. But the reality is we had to fight Democrats for 25 years. And even in this recent election, look, we're doing some analysis now of not what did the voter suppression people do in Georgia and Florida and in Mississippi. But what didn't Democrats do?
Yep.
Come on, Rev.
I'm telling you. Thank you so much for bringing that up.
Did they really put the kind of troops in there with Stacey and Gillum early? Did they really support EPSI? You know, Trump put 150 workers on the ground in Mississippi. I don't think the National Party did any of that. And EPSI turned 4 Trump districts in Mississippi without any real help.
Yeah.
So you see what I'm saying? So I'm glad we're talking about this. It's the most underreported story that we've been talking about in the national news. We talk about Russia, but the reality is Trump did not win because of Russia. Trump won because of voter suppression targeted at black people, and the ground was prepared long before he was ever a candidate.
Absolutely. And we still have a long way to go with rectifying that problem. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much. Take care now.
Absolutely.
I'm gonna call you. You know I love you.
Absolutely. So out late this afternoon, the newspaper, the Virginia Pilot, published this page from Virginia Governor Ralph Northam's medical school yearbook. Here he is. The 3 shots on the left of the screen are of Northam. The people on the left in blackface and a Klan robe and hood are hard to identify. The quote says, "There are more old drunks than old doctors in the world, so I think I'll have another beer." The GOP in Virginia is calling on Northam to resign if that is him in blackface. So...
Well, we can confirm that it's him. He just released a statement saying that it is him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think a couple things. First, Gillespie's Oppo team is probably like literally shooting themselves like right now. In the foot. Honestly, if you missed this, probably shouldn't be hired again.
Yeah.
But I think he probably should step aside. I'm gonna tell you why.
Resign as governor?
I think he should resign as governor. Give us Governor Fairfax. I'm gonna tell you why. We need to keep the same energy regardless of party. When Republicans do fuckery like this, resign.
Right.
When DeSantis, Secretary of State, had blackface, and look, get him up out of there.
That's right.
There has to be a zero tolerance policy as a culture, when it comes to stuff like this. So I think Governor Northam should resign, looking to negotiate his exit or whatever. But we have to keep the same energy regardless of party, as a culture.
Absolutely, because we just had the Secretary of State, as you mentioned, of Florida, caught in a similar scandal, and he's out of here. So I'm kind of ready for another black governor of Virginia.
I would love to see Justin as the governor of Virginia.
Absolutely.
And I do think that this, the thing that gets me that I don't think we all get is the extent to which racism and blackface and all this is woven into the very fabric of our nation.
Yeah.
Yes, he should step aside, but there's more than that. Just saying step aside there has to be a moment when we sort of say none of this stuff makes any sense.
Right.
These Confederate flags, the blackface, the killing of our young people. I mean, all of this is connected. The attack on Jussie Smollett, all of this stuff is connected. And so just stepping aside, I would certainly support that. And I agree with you that it's a bipartisan, we shouldn't say it's okay for one and not the other.
Right.
But I think it's more than just stepping aside. It's really about how do we begin to unpack this crap and to make it clear that it's unacceptable when people walk around with these MAGA hats on their heads, talking smack to people, whether it's an elder Indian on the National Mall or one of our beloved actors who stood up for better college, one of our beloved actors who's walking the streets of Chicago.
Absolutely.
So yes, step aside, but more than that. Stepping aside is like putting a Band-Aid on the BS.
Step aside and be sentenced to teach 9th grade civics for the rest of his life or something.
I think of this as a form of
9th grade civics.
You talk about woven into our history. Thomas Jefferson said, "I fear that God is just." Thinking about the way black folk were being treated in the United States. This has been the deal from the get-go. And I guess I get a little frustrated because I think about what Michelle Obama said. I'm really proud of my country for the first time, and she had to take it back, but she was telling God's whole truth.
But tell you what, I ain't never been proud of my country.
Well, yeah, but the point is,
you're also not
that is
bringing up a history
you're also not
that we don't want to face.
And it is
Point
part and parcel
Absolutely.
of America. You can't tell America's story without it.
Yeah, absolutely. And so part of that story still is this issue of we are continuing to fight for the vote. And so we have a little bit of a clip from Kristen Clark, president of the Lawyers Committee of Civil Rights under Law, who shared this story on social media.
So in Texas last week, Friday, the Secretary of State's office revealed a really alarming press release. And it was filled with all kinds of wild allegations. And in particular, they alleged that there were more than 90,000 non-citizens on the registration rolls, and alleged that about 50,000 of them had voted in elections. As voting rights lawyers, we know that when these kinds of claims are made, that they're often false and baseless. They're put out there to cause alarm and lay the groundwork for voter suppression. And we are starting to see that that is the case here. Ken Paxton, the Attorney General, threatened to prosecute any non-citizen that turned out to vote. But in the intervening days, what the state has done is they've given the list out to counties and said, we want you to review your rolls and begin a process that would purge or remove these people from the rolls. And already election officials around the state are pushing back and are saying, you're wrong. These people are citizens. In Texas, non-citizens are eligible to get driver's licenses, and many of them do that. Those licenses are good for 6 years. And indeed, many of these people are people who became citizens over that time period. It was reckless and irresponsible for Texas to put out these numbers. They were retweeted by Trump over the weekend. And this is the ugly voter suppression that we're up against in this era in 2019. Officials who would irresponsibly put out false claims of vote fraud because they want to chill the vote. They want to push more restrictions that would make it harder for people to vote. It's important that we fight back against these efforts. And another reminder about why we need Congress to restore the Voting Rights Act now. Because since the Supreme Court cut out the heart of the Voting Rights Act in a brutal 2013 decision, we have seen officials in Texas and in other parts of the country racing forward with these ugly tactics time and time again that are all about locking people of color out of the ballot box.
Sound familiar, you guys? Any quick reactions before we go to break?
I remember seeing this come across over the last week or so, and I just thought it was absurd. You know, the only voting rights, the only voter fraud that's been prosecuted has been prosecuted by Republican voters. People that have been registered Republican that actually voted for the Attorney General.
You know, Eugene, go away. Let's go away. You know, what bothers me here is the extent to which ordinary voters have been tagged as illegal for any number of reasons.
Right.
And here in Texas, but in Texas, where, you know, clearly you have a black-brown issue going on, you're really looking at some challenges. I think that that's why this H.R. 1 is so extremely important, and why we must, Kristen's comments are just right on time. We need to restore the Voting Rights Act. It's not time to throw it away. We see basically shenanigans happening, and the shenanigans are about voter suppression.
Absolutely. And I think, though, H.R. 1 still needs to be augmented to include more about the Voting Rights Act.
Well, I think I may have a scoop for you, Avis.
All right.
There's going to be an H.R. 4 aimed squarely at restoring Section 4 of the Voting Rights Act.
Excellent.
And a dear friend of ours, Congresswoman Marsha Fudge, has been appointed chair of the elections.
Just for the record.
But she's not running for president.
She don't need to run for president. She makes a difference wherever she is.
I love her.
She's been appointed chair of the Elections Subcommittee of House Administration, and she's convened a group of folk to give her advice and counsel. And there are going to be hearings in 10 cities around the country on why we need to restore the Voting Rights Act. So get your Get your stories together. That's what they're gathering evidence so that when they get to the Supreme Court, they'll have a story to tell about why we need Section 4 now.
Yeah.
Excellent.
HR 4, look out for it.
HR 4.
Okay.
We got our marching orders. We need to support that. We'll be back in a minute.
You want to check out Roland Martin Unfiltered? YouTube.com/Roland S. Martin. And subscribe to our YouTube channel. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. It's Roland Martin Unfiltered. See that name right there? Roland Martin Unfiltered. Like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's YouTube.com/Roland S. Martin. And don't forget to turn on your notifications so when we go live, you'll know it. You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. It's Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com.
So hi, I'm Dr. Avis, back for Roland Martin, who has lost his voice. So we're hoping that he's at home chilling and getting well. Next, we want to talk about the jobs report, which came out today. According to this report, the U.S. economy has added over 300,000 jobs in January. Unemployment rose overall from 3.9% to 4%. But breaking it down for whites and blacks, this is what we see. The white-only January unemployment rate was 3.3%, which was unchanged from December. The black-only unemployment rate was 6.8%, more than double that of whites, up from December's 6.6%. And here to help us understand the report a little bit more deeply is Dr. Kristen Brody, an economist at Alabama A&M University. Welcome, Dr. Brody.
Good evening, Dr. Avis. How are you?
I'm doing great. So good to have you on the show. So great to see you. So could you?
It's good to be here.
Wonderful. So could you break down these numbers for us, not just in terms of this month and last month, but what have been the trends recently in terms of black unemployment under this administration?
Well, the unemployment rate did go up a bit. We saw that total non-farm payroll employment increased by 304,000, where it was thought that it was going to only increase by 165,000. And as you said, the black unemployment rate is higher, but those numbers can be broken down even further when we look at those numbers by age and race. So for whites, it was 3.5% versus 6.8% for African Americans. But when you look at men, white men is 3.3% versus black men, 7.1%. So that number is much higher.
Absolutely.
For white women, 3.2% versus 5.5% for African American. But the real discrepancy comes with both sexes between the ages of 16 to 19. So for whites, that number was 11.6 versus 20.6 for African American. So there are some real differences when you break down those demographics.
Absolutely. And just one other thing to follow up with that. So I'm looking at these numbers just from the last couple of months. You mentioned, for example, that black men unemployment is at 7.1% now. If you go back to November, it was at 5.8%. That's a pretty significant jump for just 2 months, isn't it?
It is. It definitely is. And part of that, if you look at December, was the government shutdown, that a lot of the people that were furloughed claimed temporary unemployment. So that's part of it. But it also goes to differences in education that we've seen since 2000, differences in incarceration rate, education levels, and just pure discrimination and bias. Gotcha. Those things definitely make a difference.
So economist to economist, Dr. Malveaux has a question for you.
So have you looked at the MPOPs? How are you? It's good to see you.
Good to see you.
The employment population ratios are what concern me more than the actual unemployment rates. The fact that there's a gap, especially among men, between the percentage of the population that's employed, the MPOP. So having looked at that, what can you say about that, and why should we be concerned about that as well?
Well, I think that when you just look at the unemployment numbers and whether they've gone up or down, it doesn't consider how many people have entered or left the workforce. Furthermore, how many people are temporarily employed, and also those who have left the workforce or are counted as discouraged workers. And in fact, the number of people who are employed part-time due to economic reasons has increased. And so a lot of African Americans are going to fall into that. But those numbers aren't counted in the pure unemployment rate.
But we end up with this gap, especially among men, that concerns me. For white men, you have an impop of something that's almost 70%. But for black men, as an example, you have an impop that is 62, 63, 64. Women, it's about the same. So the percentage of people who are unemployed is concerning, especially because they're not absorbed in the unemployment rate.
Could you go into a little bit more depth about impop so that the audience understands what you're referring to?
It's the employment population ratio. So it's the percentage of the population that is employed. And so that to me is a better number to gauge engagement in the labor market than the unemployment rate.
That's true. Because the unemployment rate does not include people who have stopped looking for work, correct?
And the employment population ratio really says what percentage of the population is engaged in the labor market. And it's a really important number. And I know, my sister, because you are a labor economist also, that you've looked at some of this. You picked up the 16 to 19, which is really important. But I'm equally concerned with the prime-aged gap in the employment population ratio.
Agree. I agree with you. That is definitely an issue. And I guess, again, when you look at the trends, increases in education have helped, but African Americans are still further behind whites in terms of educational attainment at the bachelor's level. We still deal with discrimination. We still deal with segregation. And furthermore, African Americans and Latinos are more likely to lose their jobs when bad things start happening. So all of those things contribute to those gaps.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Brody. It's been great having you on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Wonderful. Well, we have an update for you today in the Jussie Smollett case. Smollett is finally speaking out about the incident that took place on Tuesday when he was attacked by two men who made racial and homophobic slurs. He released a statement today to Essence saying he is completely cooperating with police. The statement reads, "Let me start by saying that I'm okay. My body is strong, but my soul is stronger. More importantly, I want to say thank you. The outpouring of love and support from my village has meant more than I will ever be able to truly put into words. I am working with authorities and have been 100% factual and consistent on every level. Despite my frustrations and deep concern with certain inaccuracies and misrepresentations that have been spread, I still believe that justice will be served. As my family stated, these types of cowardly acts are happening to my sisters, brothers, and non-gender conforming siblings daily. I am not and should not be looked upon as an isolated incident. We will talk soon, and I will address all details of this horrific incident, but I need a moment to process. Most importantly, during times of trauma, grief, and pain, there is still a responsibility to lead with love. It's all I know, and that can't be kicked out of me. With love and respect and honor, Jussie Smollett."
Wow. Just love his spirit. Love his spirit.
Absolutely. We have to take a quick break right now. We'll be right back. Cookman is located in Daytona Beach, Florida. It was founded in 1904, so this is HBCU Giving Day. Notable alumni include A. Philip Randolph, Yvonne Scarlett Colden, James Bush III, Rasheen Mathis, and Nick Collins. To support this HBCU, we're going to ask you to go to cookman.edu. We've been telling you also that Bennett College needed to raise $5 million by today. Well, the good news is they did it, fueled by a last-minute gift of $1 million from nearby High Point University. Wasn't that sweet? That's kind of cool. Here's the president of High Point announcing the gift.
Dawkins, will you come up here for just a second? High Point University, ladies and gentlemen, on this evening wants the world to know that we're not going to let Bennett suffer in any way. We're going to see to it the future looks bright. And so High Point University today is going to offer a challenge. A challenge good for the next 48 hours, between now and Monday morning. High Point University today announces that we are providing for Bennett a gift, an investment in the amount of $1 million.
is so wonderful.
He's such
President
a cool guy.
Emeritus.
Yeah, and that's I got my blue on today for Bennett.
Awesome.
You know, if you see me without red or orange, something going on. So I was channeling Bennett, and Nito Cobain is just an amazing person.
Wow.
He was president at High Point when I was at Bennett, and he is just, you know, personally wealthy, but also done so much for his campus.
Yeah.
And has always looked into partnerships. So you know, I'm just grateful.
That's beautiful.
Just really grateful. And you know, there are about a dozen colleges in the area.
Yeah.
In the I forget what they call it, the Piedmont Triangle.
Mhm.
You know, the 5 or 6 in Greensboro. Then you've got High Point, and you've got you know, the other one, I forget.
A&T?
No.
Come on.
Well, I didn't forget. A&T's in Greensboro. Then you've got High Point. Then you've got one other town. And between them is a dozen.
Right.
And the presidents there tend to be very close.
That's
Meet
good.
once a year together, do dinner together. And I mean, I'm going to call Nito when I get home and just say, dude, I love you. But he knows I love him anyway. But that's just so amazing. But Bennett has, you know, it's bigger than Bennett. Bennett had the challenge of raising $5 million to go to Saks and say that we have the money. But that's a short-term issue.
Yeah.
The long-term issue is that none of our small HBCUs have the endowments that we need to have.
Right.
And that black people, you know, we have $1.3 trillion in the black community. Bennett needed $5 million. How come this couldn't have come from us?
Yeah.
How come we can't talk about embracing our institutions?
Well, let me say that NCNW did do an appeal.
Yes, you did.
Social media appeal, and it was very successful. And so it was just a drop in the bucket, but
well,
we did step
we
up.
do.
Every
And
drop helps.
It does help. And I do think that you're right. We need to invest more. But I do think a lot of people contributed to this need and answered that call. To everyone who answered the call, thank you.
Absolutely.
All right. So earlier in the show,
I don't even dance real well. So what is it that my friend Stacey Patton is trying to floss? What is flossing?
Flossing. That's a whole other dance.
Okay.
It'll take a while to teach it. It'll take a while to teach it.
I'm too old. But anyway, whatever.
Earlier in the show, we heard the interview with Senator Cory Booker on the Tom Joyner Morning Show. Well, that was not all of it. Sybil Wilkes had this one last question.
On a lighter note, Senator Cory Booker, you just mentioned President Obama. He had a pretty nice playlist. Do you have a theme song picked out for yourself already? Something off of your iPod, as it were?
I want to tell you, I'm the hip-hop generation, and I give a lot of deference to that. But this last week, leading up to this day, all I've been listening to is gospel.
Oh, okay. I know. The power of prayer is great, isn't it?
Amen. Amen. Hallelujah.
And what's the gospel song you're listening to most?
You know what? Kurt Franklin has this great song called Stand. And we all know that through the storms and through the dark of night, we stand strong, we stand together, we will rise.
Well, DJ Request is going to play it for you.
And there's talk of Hillary running. You might want to get Ludacris on your list. Move, get out the way.
Senator Cory Booker announcing that he's running for president in 2020 on the Tom Joyner Morning Show. My man.
Well, I'm Dr. Avis, in for Roland Martin, who will be back to bring the funk on Monday. Have a great weekend. Holla.
You want to check out Roland Martin Unfiltered? YouTube.com/Roland S. Martin. And subscribe to our YouTube channel. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. It's Roland Martin Unfiltered. See that name right there? Roland Martin Unfiltered. Like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/Roland S. Martin. And don't forget to turn on your notifications so when we go live, you'll know it. You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. It's Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Hey fam, want to check out Roland Martin Unfiltered? The blackest show on all of digital, cable, and broadcast. Check out our audio podcast. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. It's Roland Martin Unfiltered. Press play.